Hey friends, last time I asked you about advice that you had received from somebody in your life. So a lot of you named either teachers or parents or maybe a sibling who has given you some good advice, just like Bright Bill is giving to his mom. He's kind of being the protector, watching over her. One of my favorite ones is to be the bigger person, right? To be that person who apologizes first, who just takes the high road, does the right thing. My mom always says it's easier to just smile and wave and be kind, right, than to hold on to anger. So I always think that's a really good piece of advice. Smile and wave, be friendly, even if you don't want to, because it's easier. So let's jump right in. Chapter 54 is called The Mountains. It has a little picture, so I'll start by showing you that. All right. Looks like the terrain is about to change. I'm going to lean over. Here we go. The flat plains of farm country gradually rolled into hills and valleys. There were fewer crop fields and more forests. The hills grew taller, the valleys sank deeper, the farms disappeared entirely. Our friends had reached the mountains. Brightbill floated on the wind as Roz climbed the slopes. They passed craggy rock formations and rushing waterfalls and meadows lush with flowers. The robot could have hiked on, never slowing or stopping. But the goose needed to rest. As the stars came out each evening, they found a safe location to settle down. Frost was common in the higher regions, and Roz took the lighter from her tool belt and built small campfires to keep her son warm. They sat around the crackling flames, reminiscing about life on the island, until Brightbill drifted off to sleep. As the sun came up each morning, they'd clear away all traces of their campsite and set off again, deeper into the mountains. Eagles perched on jagged cliffs. Fish splashed through gurgling streams. Chipmunks bickered in the thick undergrowth. It felt good to be back in the wilderness. But this place wasn't home, so the travelers kept a brisk pace. The robot adjusted her camouflage to match her surroundings. In the forest, she wore leaves and tree barks. In the meadow, she wore grass and wildflowers. In the rocky terrain, she wore dirt and weeds. Even way out there in the wilderness, she wanted to go unseen. What Roz didn't realize was that she was already being watched. She doesn't want to be seen, but she's being watched. Chapter 55 is called The Attack. Any idea on who could be attacking? Excuse me. Thoughts? Some people said the Reccos. Some people said animals. Let's see. Wide mountain meadows made the robot nervous. While hiking through them, she felt exposed and easy to spot. Camouflage helped, but it was hard not to notice a walking clump of wildflowers, especially one accompanied by a goose. And it was in one of those wide meadows that trouble caught up with our friends. From the corner of her eye, Roz sensed movement. She turned, but only saw grass blowing in the breeze. Then a twig snapped, but the sound was swallowed by a distant roll of thunder. It wasn't until the wind changed and a musky scent wafted by that the robot understood. Danger. I smell wolves, whispered Roz. Brightbill's eyes grew big, and he whispered back, what should we do? Before Roz could reply, two wolves leaped out from the brush. They charged toward the robot, snarling, snapping their jaws. Roz heaved her son toward the sky so that he could fly to safety, and then she burst into a sprint. The robot zigged and zagged across the meadow, trying to shake off the wolves. But when she dashed through a patch of soft ground, she slipped and toppled into the grass. The wolves quickly surrounded their prey, heads low, ears drawn back. Deep growls rumbled through their teeth. Remember us, Roz? The huge male with the scar said. Hello again, Shadow, said the robot. Slowly getting to her feet. And I believe your name was Barb. You have a good memory, said the female. Actually, I have a perfect memory, said the robot. And yet somehow you've forgotten your weapon. A toothy smile appeared across Shadow's face. You aren't so tough without it, are you? Barb sniffed the breeze. Where's your pet goose? And then she saw Brightbill perched in a lone tree in the middle of the meadow. He's not my pet, said Roz. He's my son. Shadow chuckled. We've heard stories about the robot mother and her son. the goose. They're very touching. He turned and barked. Join us, Brightbill. We'd love to meet you up close. Stay where you are, son, hollered Roz. I'll take care of them. You'll take care of us, growled Shadow. No, Barb and I will take care of you. The robot's computer brain hummed as it tried to make a plan. The wolves were stalking her. Any second now, they would attack. Roz had to do something, anything, so she stalled. Stalled means to, take time. Shadow, Barb, is it just the two of you? Roz scanned the meadow and saw no others. Where's the rest of your pack? Well, that was the wrong question to ask, because the fur on Shadow's back stood up and he snarled, This is my pack now. And then the wolves pounced. But Roz wasn't there. With all the strength in her legs, the robot launched herself up and away, and now she was soaring through the air in a long, graceful arc. Once her feet stomped back to the ground, she launched herself up and away again. With giant arcing strides, the robot bounded across the meadow in the direction of her son. At first, the wolves were baffled by the strange escape, but they were expert hunters. They raced after her, studying her closely, watching where she landed. And when Roz made her final leap toward Brightbill's tree, a heavy paw, poosh, knocked her off balance. She tumbled through the air and slammed against the trunk. The leaves shook and dead branches crashed down. But the robot held on tight to the tree. Are you okay, Ma? Said the goose as he fluttered by his mother's side. Just some light scrapes, said the robot, and she pulled herself on to a sturdy branch. Below the tree, the wolves were howling with laughter. Nice try, Roz, said Shadow, but you can't outrun us. Wolves were built for chasing. You're wasting your time, said the robot. You cannot eat me, and you'll never catch my son. You still don't get it, Roz, growled the wolf. I'm not hunting you for food. I'm hunting you for revenge. What does revenge mean? What does it mean to get revenge? I don't even feel tired. I don't know what's going on. If you said that revenge is like getting back at somebody, you're right. We know that's not the way to go. Like I was just talking about at the beginning with my advice, it's be the bigger person, do the right thing. Revenge is kind of payback. So we don't want to be people who are revengeful. Chapter 56, The Torch. Our friends were stuck in that tree. They sat in the upper branches high above the wolves, trying to calculate how to escape. Brightbill could fly off whenever, but Roz had to come down eventually. And when she did, the wolves would be ready. Shadow and Barb stretched out in the shade. They glanced around, licked their fur, and sniffed the air. The wolves looked comfortable, and yet there was tension between them. I'm hungry, growled Barb. I want to eat rabbits and deer, and maybe go back to farm country and prey on some livestock. Anything is better than hunting a creature that can't be eaten. You can eat all the animals you like, said Shadow, after we get this robot. Barb grumbled with frustration. She didn't understand Shadow's need for revenge, but for now she stayed loyal to her mate. Day turned to night, and the wolves started yawning, just like me. Look, it's going to make me yawn again. What the heck? Barb's eyelids became heavy. Shadow's body became weary. Then the soothing song of the crickets lulled them both to sleep. The sight of the sleeping wolves reminded Roz of those long winter nights on the island, when the animals crawled into her warm home to sleep. She remembered the frightened look in their eyes as they saw the fire for the first time. And this gave Roz an idea. Quietly, she broke off a dead branch from the tree trunk. Then she took the lighter from her old tool belt and held a flame under the branch's knobby end until it was blazing. And then she dropped down to the ground. Shadow and Barb snapped awake to find the world bathed in orange light. That's some figurative language, right? The world bathed in orange light. Obviously the world can't take a bath, right? So the world can't bathe. So what that means is that orange light was covering, and we know that the orange light is coming from the fire. Towering above them, looking like a demon, was the robot. Her eyes were glowing, her mouth was roaring. In her hand was a torch, flames rippling, embers whirring into the air. The wolves had never seen a fire. It was beautiful and terrible. Deep inside, they felt their wolf instincts telling them that this ball of swirling light was dangerous. Their instincts told them to run, and when Roz lunged toward them, they did. Barb yelped, Shadow whimpered, and the two wolves raced away from the fire just as fast as they could. Go Roz! Woo! All right. One more. Here we go. Chapter 57, The Stones. At first light, Roz nudged Brightbill awake, and the travelers continued north through the mountains. The goose stood on his mother's shoulders as she marched. His eyes darted nervously, searching for any sign of the wolves. But they were gone, and our friends turned their attention to a new problem. The weather out there was always changing. Roz and Brightbill had seen many calm, sunny days suddenly turn to wind or fog or sleet. Our friends expected bad weather, so they hardly noticed when heavy rain came sweeping down on the valley. But there was something odd about this rain. Brightbill squinted at the oncoming storm and said, Ma, why is the rain bouncing off the ground? Bouncing rain? That didn't seem right. The robot's computer brain went to work. That's not rain. It's hail. Clang! A hailstone bounced off Roz's chest. Another swooshed into the weeds. Then the sky opened up and the hailstones were everywhere. They tore through leaves and branches. They ricocheted off rocks and roots. They flattened flowers and bushes. To the robot, the hailstones were annoying. To the goose, they were deadly and painful. A stone hit Brightbill's shoulder, and he fell to the ground. Roz scooped him up, hunching over, protecting him from the falling stones. But the hailstorm might kill the bird if they couldn't find coverage soon. Frantically, the robot scanned the area for any type of shelter. And there it was. On the far side of the valley, beneath the river, was a cabin. It was old and shabby, but it had a roof, and that's what our friends needed most. Roz held her son close, pumped her legs, and thundered across the valley. Heavy hailstones hissed into the grass and squelched into the mud and clanged on the robot. There was a soft thump, and Brightbill cried out in pain. Roz bounded over the rushing river in a single leap, landed without breaking a stride, and kept running. Now she could hear hailstones cracking against the cabin, louder and louder. The robot stomped up to the front door, turned the handle, and stepped inside. All right. I'm going to pause right here. Is it safe there in the cabin? What do you think? They've been trying to hide this whole time. Who does the cabin belong to? And will they be safe there? Let me know what you think.